we have a new tornado warning. So we're going to take a look at this. It's in central sections of Marshall County, moving into the west side of Bedford County. There's actually a little rotation ring, and I'm going to see if I can flip this to a radar behind me. There we go. And you could just take this straight out of links if you'd like to. And it shows just to the west of 431 and just to the west of Highway 31. There's that warning ring. So not far from Culleoka, but east of you and moving toward Palmetto, just south of Chapel Hill. And so you've got to be hunkered down in your safe spot. New tornado warning in effect there until 5 o'clock for, again, southern sections of Marshall County and western sections of Bedford County. So let's get a little tighter here. Let's see what we see for the rotation within the cell. And there it is. Wow, this looks pretty good. And it makes me wonder if this is the residuals from what hit somewhere else before. Likely not. It's a little farther north. And so there it is. And so we take a look at some of the rotation strengths. And notice away from the radar at 46 miles an hour and toward the radar at 31. So almost collectively 90 miles an hour worth of rotation. It's very tight. Sometimes we say the rotation is broad, but this is not. The reds and greens are almost on top of one another. So this is a little more concerning. And we already had damage with the last one that didn't look as strong as this over into Lawrence County. So be hunkered down. Cowden, Whitehead, Farmington, Laws Hill, Palmetto, like we talked about, Sim Spring, Clay Hill, Ames, and around Berlin. So again, this Franklin Pike, Highway 431, and then notice east of there we've got Highway 31, and it's splitting the two, and it's going to eventually cross 41 heading north of Shelbyville as it moves along. We're going to track this for 30 minutes or so and just see the development of this, see how it just sort of spun up there. And now given that, let's do a little track. And then I'll set it up for Lisa. I think Lisa's gotten some water and she's back, so she's ready to go. So here's the track, and it's going to take it east-northeast at about 35, and it shows these communities potentially: Poplands Crossroads at 456, Fall Creek at 5 o'clock straight up, Anchor Mill at 5 o'clock straight up, Shelbyville, we've all heard of Shelbyville, or most of us, at 5:08, and Venata at 5:08 as well, on its way toward potentially Bell Buckle in time. Lisa?
Hey, Dan, this is just another example of what these storms have been doing this afternoon, where they really strengthen and then all of a sudden they'll go down and then back up again. So this is one of the storms that we had tracked a little bit earlier, which again has started to pulse back up and has prompted this brand new warning that includes parts of Marshall County and Bedford County as we are going all the way till 5 o'clock with this. So for the next 20 minutes, as it continues to hold together at its current strength right now. But you can see that little warning ring pop in there, and there is also that little notch on the back side of that storm as it continues to move towards the northeast right now. So you can just tell out ahead of this. I mean, if you're in Christiana, if you're down to Shelbyville, this storm is moving in your general direction. So you may not be getting that part of it, but definitely we'll be seeing some of the higher winds, some of the heavier downpours with this storm as it advances on towards the east right now. But this is a pretty small area that is under that tornado warning at this point, which is in effect until 5 o'clock right now, just off to the north of you if you are in the Lewisburg area. But let's get a closer look, see exactly where this is, which areas where folks might be, maybe get some identifiers for you for some of the roads, and also, of course, for some of the communities. And that's Palmetto right there. This is, of course, Highway 31 coming straight down out of Chapel Hill. And then you can see 431 right through here. So if these certainly sound familiar to you, want to make sure you're in your safe place. There's the Farmington community. There is Whitehead. There's Cowden. There's Osland and Laws Hill. These are some of the areas right here in the general vicinity where we're seeing this potential rotation that is taking place with this storm. So from 431 over to not too far from 31, and with those Osland, Cowden, Whitehead communities, and all the way over to just off to the east there of Silver Creek. And then we just got an updated image that pushes it a little bit farther off to the east, rather. This is our debris detector, which basically shows us anytime we're looking for something that may have been lofted up in the air. And what tornadoes do is when they're spinning, they create sort of a vacuum that's going to lift up anything that it's picked up off the ground, and that debris is detected here on radar. So that's what Dan is looking to see if we can identify some of that there, and you can see that lines up very well with where that circulation was much tighter just a second ago, but where that circulation is being identified with this storm as it advances on towards the east. So we'll watch for signs like that. This particular cell, I believe, as we have tracked this for a ways now, has already had a history of creating some problems. This is half-inch size hail we could have with this storm as it moves eastward right now. That's what our radar is detecting with that. You can see that hail showing up from Chapel Hill and all the way down to around the Palmetto area as it moves towards the east here. Elsewhere around this, we are looking at just some lighter showers in Moortrace and also Shelbyville. You've got some heavier downpours right down here around Cornersville and also around the Linville area. And you've already been dealing with some pretty heavy weather today and stretching all the way back to east of Lawrenceburg, because right there in Lawrenceburg, you've already had your bout with severe weather for the day. So these storms are now moving east of you, but there's a lot of lightning still around this area, all moving towards the east. So heads up to folks here over in Fayetteville. If you're in Winchester, heads up to you as this storm will continue to move in your general direction right now. Elsewhere, as we look a little farther off to the north, no issues appear with any severe storms developing. Really don't think this is going to be our prime area for severe storms. It looked like most of the components that were coming together to create these tornadoes is really concentrated here, kind of south of Nashville. And of course, Nashville is in the good zone now as well, with those storms having passed you by. But that is a tornado warning that is in effect here for Marshall County and also for Bedford County right now as the storm advances on towards the east. Let's get another updated storm track on it for folks, Dan. And as it moves eastward right now, I want to remind you, as we put up the storm track, we want to make sure you're headed into your safe spot. If you're any of these communities here, Sim Spring at 4:52 is the estimated arrival time. Over to Poplands Crossroads at 4:57, Fall Creek at 5 o'clock. Anchor will be right at 5 o'clock as well, and Veneta at 5:07, and Edison at 5:11. So if you're in those areas, make sure that you are in that safe spot. If you've got a storm shelter, that's great. So many of us don't have one, so you'll want to go to a basement or just the lowest level of your home. Make sure it's an interior room, and you want to be sure to protect your head from any flying debris. Remember, that's what I was talking about, of all that stuff that's being sucked up inside that tornado. You can use your pillows, blankets, a helmet, anything like that to help protect your head, because that's how most folks are injured, is from that flying debris and head injuries. Abandoned cars and mobile homes, because they're just not safe when we are in a tornado. So we want to make sure we're not there. But those are the communities that we were just talking about, from Sim Springs all the way over to the Deason community, as the storm is moving very close to 41 right there, moving off towards the east. Other locations, Eagleville over to College Grove and up to Almaville. Some heavy downpours there, and had a report out of Triune that they had some ping pong ball size hail. So, you know, we're talking about some pretty good size hail coming down with that storm, and that is certainly big enough to do some damage. So watch out for that if you're in some of these communities that are off to the east of Triune. Don't want you to see any of that coming into your area and damaging your car. So in other words, if you can, get your car in the garage if you can do so before that storm makes its way off to the east and headed toward your general direction. Here's a look at our storm threats, and this is Almaville. There's College Grove. So we're talking about radar estimates here of 1.5 inch size hail with this storm as it's getting closer to folks over here in the Murfreesboro area. So if you're in Murfreesboro, you might be one of the folks that will want to go on and pull that car in the garage if you've got a garage available that you can do just that, as that moves on towards the east right now. Dan?
Yeah, Lisa, so it looks like what was left of the Triune cell, we could track it across. Triune's down along 840 in Williamson County, this general area down in through here. So watch the cell cross there, and then we'll go back to the tornado warning and you can see it just blow up on the border of Rutherford and Williamson County. Drop the hail, and it looks like now the hail producing part of that cell is around Almaville. So I'll stop the time lapse and just show you real quickly where I'm talking about the west side of Murfreesboro. So between Almaville and Murfreesboro, Blackman, not far from Emmett Heights, Crestwood. Could be some decent sized hail at Crestwood on the west side of downtown Murfreesboro. Coming into Brownview Acres, Casey subdivision, Broadwood, if I'm saying that correctly, Asbury Park, Confederate Glen Estates, perhaps in your area, in Florence and Little Hope in Rutherford County, could be some decent sized hail from what's left of the triune storm that dropped some decent hail a few moments ago. Now, here's something interesting as well. We're seeing another low-level rotation lock on a storm, not just the tornado warning storm where we had one before. You can see the tornado warning that remains in effect until 5. That's for the eastern side of Marshall County, and now moving into Bedford County. Looks like the Weather Service is about to cancel that warning, but farther south. So you see that next to me around Cornersville, there's that circulation ring, if you will. And we get some reflectivities coming off the radar with the black colors, the pink and the black colors, the purples, and those indicate a hail threat for sure. Let me just show you the potential within this, probably ping pong ball size. Here's our storm threat button. And yeah, about 1 inch to ping pong ball size hail there. And then could be some strong gusty winds with that rotation developing in that general area. So north of Petersburg, south of Lewisburg, and then here is a look at the radar. Let me clear off the little queries here, and you can see around Cornersville, just a heads up, there could be some significant hail there, and maybe some low-level rotation that prompts a tornado warning in time. So the big view of Middle Tennessee shows where all the activity is now. And not to say we're done with rain, because we'll probably have a few additional showers later on this evening. But Nashville's looking pretty good. This is where all the action is. Tornado watch remains in effect until 6. I think it's probably until closer to 7 where we finally get out of this on the Cumberland Plateau. So I wouldn't, I think probably closer to 7, Crab Orchard, Crossville, Pleasant Hill, you in time there can say, hey, we're done with severe weather tonight. We'll have more rain, but by 7 o'clock, it is out of Middle Tennessee. Lisa.
All right, so recapping that again, the tornado warning that we had has been canceled because that storm has weakened, and then the one south of it is starting to maybe gain a little bit more in intensity. We'll watch that for you, but that tornado warning has been canceled for Marshall County. Good news there, so we will send it right back over to Lauren and also to Tracy.